Potato, potato, potato on the rooftop.
You know what? I can already feel it in the air. The wind becomes much colder and crisp, leaves slowly start to change color, and in the morning, fog rolls in far more often, especially here where there's a lot of water. In a few weeks, we arrive in the most beautiful and, for me personally, most nostalgic season of the year, autumn. So I thought it would be fun to talk about games that get you in the mood and invoke this type of nostalgia specifically. For me, those are either games with a full colorful autumn setting or an early November vibe with its bare trees, fog and rainy cold days. And of course, they are all horror games. So dust off your favorite costumes and get your pumpkin latte ready as we talk about the perfect games to get you in the mood for the best time of the year. What's up, friends? My name is Potato, and those are my top 10 games to kick off spooky season. In the early to mid 2010s, there was a big insurgence of these walking sim horror games, like Outlast and of course the classic Amnesia: The Dark Descent. One of them, and quite frankly one of my favorites, is the Layers of Fear series, especially the first one. The big empty house with its shifting corridors and creepy atmosphere was really something when it released in 2016. It is set at night while it's rainy and stormy outside, and you had to move through the house uncovering the truth, not just about what happened in the house, but who yourself are in the context of this horror tale. I have to admit, when it comes to invoking the autumn nostalgia, it has not a lot going for, other than it's raining and it's oppressive, but when I think about the game to play to get into the mood for Halloween and autumn, it always comes to my mind. So very low on nostalgia drip, but nevertheless a fantastic horror title that also can get real scary at times. By the way, you can watch a stream I did a while back playing the first couple of hours of this gem if you don't have the guts to play it yourself. And it's the first game on the list, so I want to explain something. I will rate those games not just by how much they transition you into the cold season, but also how scary they are on a scale of 1 to 5 scary potatoes. So this way you can decide for yourself if you have what it takes, or much rather watch an idiot like me play it instead. Layers of Fear scores 3 out of 5 scary potatoes. All of the little nightmare games are wonderful, and I say that because in October we get the third entry and I expect it to be as wonderful as its predecessors. Little Nightmares 2, however, has a special place in my heart. It drips with atmosphere, and some of the locations you visit, like the forest or rainy city, do spark my anticipation for autumn. Also the muted colors with a lot of grays and browns help with that. The vibe is creepy, unsettling and dreamy, and the music has this music box vibe, and the creatures you encountered covered my whole body in goosebumps. It's not as scary as the big titles on this list, but it packs a punch, especially when you play it at night with headphones. The kind of stylized and whimsical nature, however, makes the game really approachable, even though you might be someone easily scared. It scores 2 out of 5 scary potatoes, and it's just a joy to play. Luigi's Mansion 3. Man, this will be the first game my daughter will feel nostalgia for when she's grown up, because we played through this game together and it was a blast. That's why I can get the rating out of the way first. It's very light on scares, almost non-existent, so 1 out of 5 scary potatoes. The vibe is more like a Disney goosebump movie, like Haunted Mansion or something like that. It got all your favorite Mario characters, and the best one, Luigi, is the star of the show. It might not have the most sophisticated autumn vibe, but the ghosty, spooky Halloween theme it aims for does get the job done and get you in the mood regardless. It's beautiful, it's jam-packed with secrets, it's that typical Nintendo magic, and it's the same for kids and adults alike. A worthy game to kick off spooky season, even with your kids, or your friends' kids, or your sister's kids, I guess. Still, Waxer Deep was a big surprise for me and I enjoyed it so much playing through this game. That being said, it's also a game that sometimes injected me with my favorite drug of all time, which is autumn nostalgia. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think it's the cold grey weather outside the oil rig the game is set on. You do come outside on a regular basis, and every time I felt my heart pounding, not just from the horrors I have to face, but from the anticipation of the cold season. I know I'm weird, but it's something that hits so damn hard for me. This game is not as competent when it comes to that feeling as some other entries on the list, but nonetheless it's there and I appreciate it for it. Besides that, it's a very competent horror game that also happens to be very approachable. I thought it was scary at times, but I had no trouble playing through and I definitely would do so again. In fact, it even has DLC now, so I might check back in. For me, it's a 3 out of 5 scary potatoes. Dredge is a game with a super cozy but also very chilly vibe. A lot of water, small islands littered with pine trees, rocky cliffs, fog rolling in and out, and a very unique and sometimes grotesque art style. The color space reminds me very much of autumn. Browns, reds and oranges, and since it's changing the time of day very quickly, which is part of the gameplay loop, you get a lot of sunrises and sunsets. The game itself is a cozy game by nature, but it mixes that with some Lovecraftian horror that is very subtle at first, but creeps in more and more the longer you play. And let me tell you, as someone whose heart rate rises directly proportional to how far I swim out in the open sea, because of all the things that might be beneath me, this game hits that nerve with a sledgehammer. It can be very nightmare-inducing actually, but as a whole it's very manageable and a perfect entry point not just into spooky season, but horror games as a whole. I give this game 2 out of 5 scary potatoes. Pumpkin Jack is very heavily inspired by classics like Medieval and oozes Halloween vibe all around. The colors, the theme, the atmosphere. I mean, you're a dude with a pumpkin as a head. It doesn't get more obvious than this. It's all very Peggy 13 spooky though. The game itself is a very competent platformer and it's just a joy to play and experience. Maybe even a perfect opportunity to play with your kids. Or your niece or nephew, depending on where you are in life, I guess. What I'm trying to say is, Pumpkin Jack is super fun. It has humor and the vibe, while already full on Halloween, is super cozy. 1 out of 5 scary potatoes because it's not scary, but I want to play the animation. Next up is an autumn vibe staple for me, and quite frankly one of the best horror games ever made, and you can fight me for it. No matter if you prefer the 2005 original or the remake, Resident Evil 4 nails the late autumn vibe, especially in its opening act. Bare trees, a lake, and the overall color palette does a great job in creating a cold, almost cozy feeling in a weird way. If I had to choose, I would go for the original Resident Evil 4 over the remake because there the color palette was a little more desaturated and nailed the vibe even more. It's not the colorful type of fall vibe, it's more the cold late October, early November vibe, if that makes sense. A fantastic entry to get in the mood nonetheless, and when it comes to how scary the game is, I would give it 3 out of 5 scary potato. It's stressful, sure, and some of the later parts can get really creepy. I'm looking at you, Regenerators. Ugh. But overall, I think it's manageable. I mean, I played through it when I was 15 years old, and I think Resident Evil in general, especially the ones that lean more towards the action side, are a good place to start if you want to get into the horror genre. There's this one feeling right before autumn starts, when you sit together with friends, enjoying the late summer nights, maybe at a campfire, but you already have the feeling that the season comes to a close. Nights get colder, trees start to change color. It might be subtle first, but a keen eye already can spot the transition. For me, the quarry encapsulates that feeling. Set in a summer camp at a lake, forest and mountain trails all around, it's really like a good campfire story. Cozy and warm, but shifts into cold and dark rather quickly. I love the vibe, and I think it's perfect to accommodate that feeling you might have right before autumn starts. The game itself can be quite spooky, but I think the choose your own adventure approach those supermassive games are known for make them pretty approachable. I give it 3 out of 5 scary potatoes. And hey, if you're really too scared to play it alone, grab a bunch of friends. The game has an awesome multiplayer component where you and your buddies can play individual characters of the story, and it can be completed in an evening. This way you can scream together and don't have to feel bad about it. And I won't tell anyone, I promise. You know, you could argue that Silent Hill 2 and of course its fantastic remake are games that could be categorized as early winter vibe games, at least in my logic, which is probably super weird for anyone else, but let me explain. The fog the series is so famous for, the cold and dreamy vibe, the rain-soaked streets. It's like coming out of October and transitioning into November. But it's not all the time like this. The start of the game, for example, running through the pine tree woods with the fog getting thicker, the sound almost muted, rainy, cold, it 100% triggers the autumn nostalgia in me, and I desperately yearn for that in late summer. And it doesn't stop there. The soundtrack, the atmosphere, the voice work and locations. This game is so special and really celebrates everything that I love when I think about the spooky season. It's a vibe trip into the cold season as a whole, while also being an unbelievably good horror game all around. It's not for the faint of heart though. While I do think it's very approachable, this game, especially because of the very heavy psychological themes, can get very scary very quickly. I was torn between a 3 or 4 scary potato rating, but I settled for 4 out of 5. Alan Wake 2, in my opinion, is the perfect game to transition me into October nostalgia. It oozes that Pacific Northwest vibe with its pine trees and mountains, cabins and little lakeside towns. One moment encapsulating that early autumn feel while walking through Bright Falls or through the woods at Cauldron Lake, and then switches over to a more cold and foggy vibe in Watery, while also having that rainy urban city feel in the dark place. It's stunning, really. What stands out for me next to the environment is the mysterious and weird story. And I love Remedy, and I love their unique approach to storytelling, especially in their Alan Wake series. The live action stuff combined with top of the line graphical fidelity really hit home in this one. And to be honest, this game was the reason I built my 4090 graphics card PC. God damn it. I think there's so much to love here, and that's the reason why I often come back, not just to Alan Wake itself, but Remedy games as a whole. The vibe is as thick as it can get. Alan Wake 2, compared to its predecessor, is leaning more into the survival horror genre though, so I think if you struggle with horror games, you will have a hard time with this one. It can get really scary. I would give it 4 out of 5 scary potatoes, but if you can stomach it and never tried it, I think it's the perfect game for kicking off spooky season. Sam Lake is a fucking genius.
Push your chin forward. Now straighten your nose, narrow your mouth, lift your cheeks up, squint your eyes, arch your eyebrows.
And there you have it, my top 10 list of the perfect games to kick off spooky season and inject you with some much needed autumn nostalgia. If you enjoyed your time, may I kindly ask you to scare the shit out of the like button by clicking on it, and to tell your friends about this very special place on the internet. It really helps me out a ton, so thank you so much. And I also want to hear from you guys. Do you love this vibe as much as I do? And if you do, what games would you recommend to get in the mood? Let me know in the comments below. But as always, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch my video, and I hope something awesome happens to you until we hear each other again. Take care. Bye.